All right, welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
It's been a really interesting journey so far, right? And, one of the things I love is how we get to really dig deep into A Course in Miracles. Today, I'm thinking maybe we can take a step back.
Okay, yeah.
And tackle some questions that we've been getting about lessons 11 through 15.
Sure. Yeah, they're really important ones. A lot of people seem to get tripped up or kind of hit a wall there.
Yeah.
And for good reason. There's a lot packed in there.
So just to kind of give everyone a refresher, lessons 11 through 15 really start to kind of explore how what we think impacts, or I guess I should say, creates how we experience the world.
It's that idea that our perception shapes our reality.
Exactly. These lessons don't mess around. I mean, lesson 11 just jumps right out and says, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world. And then that leads us, I guess, right into lesson 12, which says, I am upset because I see a meaningless world. And then, of course, all that upset, according to lesson 13 anyway, it leads straight into fear.
Right. A meaningless world engenders fear, it says. Then lesson 14 comes in with this powerful reminder.
God didn't create this meaningless world. So then lesson 15, when it says, my thoughts are images that I have made.
Right.
It's almost like it's giving us permission to take responsibility for our thoughts. These lessons are like, hey, open your eyes.
Right.
Pay attention to what you're creating.
Become a conscious artist of your own experience.
We got two really interesting listener questions today, both about lesson 11 review.
Yeah, my meaningless thoughts are showing me a meaningless world.
And both these questions kind of get at what a lot of people struggle with when they first hear this idea.
It can be a pretty big shift in thinking, right? I mean, we're so used to believing that the world is just out there,
Right.
It is what it is, and our thoughts are just reactions to it. But this lesson is saying something totally different.
This first question, I think, really highlights that.
Okay.
They're really struggling with the idea that thoughts actually create our reality.
It's a really profound concept to wrap your head around.
It is.
It's suggesting that the world isn't inherently good or bad or happy or sad.
Right.
Those qualities come from our thoughts.
Okay, I get that. But this listener's also really stuck on the word meaningless. They want to know what it actually means to have meaningless thoughts
Yeah, good question.
that create a meaningless world.
Right.
Sounds kind of bleak when you put it that way.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the idea of meaninglessness here isn't denying that things happen or that the world exists.
Okay.
It's pointing to the fact that it's our interpretations that really shape our experience. And those interpretations are often colored by our own, subjective stuff.
Our fears, our beliefs.
Exactly.
So like the world itself is neutral.
Yes.
Like a blank canvas. And our thoughts are the paint that we use to create the picture.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
So it's not that the canvas or the events themselves are meaningless.
Okay.
It's that the meaning we give them is often based on things that aren't really real.
So how do we start to see this in our own lives?
Well, self-observation is key.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Just noticing our thoughts without judging them
Right.
can help us see how they're affecting our emotions and shaping our experiences.
We can choose to see the world through a different lens.
Right.
One that's based on love and forgiveness.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's question number one. This next one comes from a listener who wants to know how to actually apply lesson 11 consistently,
Okay.
in everyday life.
Yeah.
They find it really hard to remember and to kind of shift their perspective when things get tough.
I hear that a lot. It's definitely an ongoing practice.
Right.
The ego's really sneaky.
It is.
It's always trying to pull us back into those old habits of thinking. But the more we can practice this idea of forgiveness, the more we start to experience its transformative power. But it's a journey worth taking.
So how can we start to make this more tangible in our daily lives?
It starts with awareness, paying attention to our thoughts.
Right. Noticing how they're affecting our emotions.
And then asking ourselves, is this thought creating the experience I want to have?
And if not?
We choose a different thought, one that's more aligned with love, with peace, with understanding.
So it's about becoming a more conscious creator of our own reality.
Exactly. And that's what this lesson is really all about.
Welcome back, everyone. We've got two really interesting questions to dig into today about lesson 12. So this first question is something I think everyone kind of struggles with when they first hear about this idea. If the world is meaningless, why should we even try to help people or, try to make things better?
Yeah, you could think like, what's the point, right?
Exactly.
But you know what the Course says? It's actually the opposite. It says when you let go of the idea that the world has some kind of meaning like on its own, you actually become more present, and more effective in like the things you do.
So instead of being all focused on like fixing a broken world, you're more motivated by like expressing love and compassion.
Yeah, basically it's more about that because that's just like who we really are.
That's a really cool way to look at it. So it's not about like forcing the world to change, but more about shifting something inside of us.
Yeah, that's it. The Course teaches that the world is just a reflection of our own minds. Have you ever noticed, like, when you're feeling kind of judgmental, it's like you see flaws everywhere you look?
Oh, totally.
So it's like, as we heal our own perceptions and let go of, like, fear and judgment, we naturally become more loving and kind, and that's what can really inspire other people to change, too.
It makes sense when you put it that way. When you approach things from a place of peace, your actions are just more real, more genuine. It's not about like struggling or trying to force things to be a certain way.
Right, and that leads to another important thing. When we realize the world doesn't have like inherent meaning, we don't need specific outcomes. We can act with joy and freedom knowing that our purpose is really just to be loving and kind, not trying to control the world or make it fit what we expect.
That's a great point. The second question people sent in this one really gets at the heart of it all, I think.
Oh, yeah.
If the world is meaningless, then where does meaning come from? If it's not out there in the world, then where is it? It's almost a contradiction, isn't it?
Well, it's definitely something people have been wondering about for a long time, but the Course has a different answer. It says meaning isn't something you find, it's something you create. Through your thoughts, through how you see things, imagine the world is just like a blank canvas. We're the artists, and we choose the colors, the shapes, everything.
So we're not just watching the world, we're actually part of making its meaning.
Yeah, that's right. And the Course reminds us that the most real and lasting meaning, it doesn't come from things you achieve or things you own. It comes from understanding that we're all creations of a higher power and we have this inherent worth. Remember in Lesson 12 when it talks about choosing again? We can choose to look at ourselves and the world through a lens of love and see that divine spark in everyone.
So instead of looking for meaning in things that are temporary and outside of us, we find it by connecting with something bigger than ourselves. Something that gives our lives purpose.
Our real purpose is to wake up to who we truly are, to our oneness with that higher power. That's where we find that deep and unshakable meaning that goes beyond the limits of this world.
We're going to be tackling 2 listener questions on Lesson 13.
Yeah, always great to hear from other students and how these lessons are landing for them.
So this first question, the listener asks, what does it mean that I think I'm in competition with God?
That's a really good question. And I think it points to, that fundamental error that the Course is really trying to help us undo,
Right.
which is this idea that we are separate from God. Because if we really believed that we were one with God,
Yeah.
then this idea of competition wouldn't even make sense.
It wouldn't even enter our minds.
Right. It's like, yeah, where would that even come from?
Yeah.
But when we see ourselves as separate, it's almost like we create this hierarchy
Right.
where God's up here and then we're down here, and then suddenly it's like, oh, I gotta prove myself,
Right.
I gotta earn my place.
Like I got to do enough to kind of catch up.
It can be about like, achieving certain things in the world, or maybe even like, trying to be a really good person, like following all the rules.
Right. It's like I got to get on God's good side somehow.
And it's all based on this sense of lack, right? Like there's not enough love to go around.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, the Course is really clear about this. There is no separation. We are already one with God. His love isn't something we have to earn or achieve.
Yeah.
It's our very essence.
There's such a relief in that, isn't there? Like just remembering that my worth doesn't depend on anything I do or don't do.
Absolutely. And when we can really let that sink in,
Yeah.
it changes everything, because then it's not about striving or competing or proving anything. It's about allowing ourselves to simply rest in that love.
Just be.
Just be.
Okay, so the second question is really interesting. It says, if the world is meaningless, does that mean all my relationships are meaningless too?
This is one that comes up a lot, and I think it's important to clarify what we mean by meaningless,
Right.
because the Course isn't saying that our experiences aren't real or that they don't matter. It's more about understanding that the meaning we give to those experiences comes from us.
Okay, so it's not that the world itself is inherently meaningless. It's that the meaning is something we project onto it. So like our relationships, the people we love, the connections we feel, those aren't inherently meaningless.
Right. It's more like those relationships are a mirror reflecting back to us our own beliefs and perceptions.
Okay, so like if I'm looking at my relationships through a lens of fear or lack, I'm going to see something very different than if I'm looking at them through a lens of love and connection.
Exactly.
It's like the people in my life haven't changed, but my experience of them changes based on how I'm choosing to see them.
And that's where forgiveness comes in, right? Because forgiveness allows us to let go of those old limiting beliefs.
The judgments, the grievances.
Yeah, all of that. And as we do that, we start to see our relationships through a whole new lens.
One that reflects the love that's always been there.
Yes.
So even though the world might not have inherent meaning, the love and the connection and the joy that we experience in our relationships, those are real.
Very real.
Right. And that's what gives them meaning.
And it's a meaning that we create. We choose to see it. We choose to experience it.
That's beautiful. We're tackling some listener questions about lesson 14. God didn't create this meaningless world, right?
Yeah.
We had two questions that really stood out to us. So the first question, someone asks, if God did not create this world, then who did, and why does it seem so real?
Right.
And it's such a common question.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
It's a good question.
It really is.
It makes sense, you know, to kind of question that, especially given how solid and tangible, the world feels to us.
Sure.
But the Course presents this idea that what we perceive as the world is actually like a projection of our own thoughts, and it's driven by the ego,
Right.
that part of our mind that really like thrives on fear, guilt, and separation from God. So in a way, we've kind of constructed this world to avoid confronting like our true nature, which is love and oneness.
So are you saying that everything we experience is just like a figment of our imagination?
Yeah.
I mean, what about the physical world? Mountains, oceans, trees, are these all illusions too?
Yeah, it's not that the physical world isn't real, like, in the sense that we can experience it,
Right.
with our senses. What A Course in Miracles emphasizes is the meaning that we ascribe to the world. So the ego interprets everything through this lens of fear and lack.
Right.
And that distorts our perception. Like, think about it. When you're feeling anxious, even the most beautiful sunset can seem bleak.
Totally.
Right.
Yeah.
So our inner state really colors our experience of the outer world.
That's really making me think differently about how I'm, interpreting my experiences. So if our perception of the world is so heavily influenced by the ego, like what does that mean for the suffering that we see all around us?
Right.
And that leads us perfectly into the second question that someone wrote in. If God did not create suffering, then why does it exist?
That's the question, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, how could a loving God allow so much pain?
Right.
Well, in Miracles suggests that suffering stems not from God, but from our identification with the ego. So it's like we're wearing, glasses that distort our vision. We start to perceive the world through this like ego's lens of fear and separation, and that creates this experience of suffering.
So it's not that God is, inflicting suffering upon us. It's just we're choosing to align ourselves with the ego's thought system, which ultimately leads to pain.
Exactly. It's about understanding this difference between cause and effect. God doesn't punish us with suffering. It's simply like a natural consequence of choosing to believe in separation and fear. It's like if you choose to eat junk food every day and then you're surprised when you get sick.
Right.
The sickness isn't a punishment. It's just the result of your choices.
That's a really helpful way to think about it. It puts the responsibility back on us, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
It suggests that we have the power to change our experience by changing our beliefs.
Absolutely. And that's the ultimate message of A Course in Miracles, that we have this power to choose love over fear, connection over separation. And it's not about denying, the existence of challenges or difficulties. It's about shifting our perspective on them, seeing them as opportunities for growth,
Right.
as opportunities for learning.
So to sum up, the world that we experience is largely like a projection of our own thoughts and beliefs.
Yeah.
And the suffering that we encounter is a consequence of choosing to identify with the ego's fear-based thinking. I mean, that's pretty profound.
It is, yeah.
It's a lot to unpack, but it offers like this very hopeful message.
Yeah.
That we're not victims of circumstance.
You're right.
We have the power to choose love.
Yeah.
And in doing so, transform our experience of the world. Lesson 15 in the course, how can all my thoughts be images I've made when I see things like natural disasters or suffering? Those seem so beyond my control.
Right. And this is where it's important to remember what the course is and isn't saying. It doesn't say that we're literally causing these events. It's more about how we're perceiving them.
So not like I'm sitting here thinking up a hurricane.
No. It's more about the lens we're using to view these events, the lens that our own thought system creates.
Okay, that makes sense. So like two people can witness the same event, but experience it totally differently based on their own, what did you call it?
Their thought system. It's like, think of it like a filter. Our thoughts create a filter through which we experience the world.
Oh, I get it. So it's not about denying the reality of the event, but acknowledging that our thoughts shape how we experience it.
And that's where this lesson gets really interesting, because it starts to point us toward the idea that real peace, lasting peace, doesn't come from controlling the external world.
Because that's pretty much impossible, right?
It is. The world's always going to be full of unpredictable events. So the course is suggesting that true peace comes from shifting our internal world.
Okay, I think I'm starting to see where this is going. And it actually ties in perfectly with the listener's second question.
Oh, great. What's that?
They ask, if I'm making these images, does that mean I'm to blame for everything bad that happens in my life?
Yeah, that's a big one. And honestly, a lot of people get tripped up on this. But the course is very clear that it's not about blame.
So how does it address that?
Yeah, by making a distinction between blame and responsibility. Blame is all about guilt and punishment, like who did what wrong.
But responsibility is?
Responsibility, in the context of the course, is about recognizing the power we have to choose our thoughts. It's not saying you chose the event, but you choose how you think about it. You didn't cause the problem, but you can choose how you respond to it. And it's incredibly empowering because it means that even in the midst of difficult situations, we always have a choice.
So just to recap, Lesson 53 emphasizes that our thoughts create our reality. It's about becoming conscious of our thinking and choosing thoughts that serve us, not sabotage us.
It's about self-empowerment, not self-recrimination.
Love it. And we're going to continue exploring this idea with Lesson 54 tomorrow.
Can't wait.
All right, until then, thanks for joining us.
See you soon.